Hello, and this is Nick Kennedy, your gray man, talking to you on a Monday evening. Glad to say the cold weather seems to be finally leaving the great state of Georgia, which is great because it's been pretty cold. Um, and as I've mentioned before, that's not I didn't come to Georgia away from Boston to bring the cold with me. But anyway, we seem to be gotten past that bad spell, and I guess most of the week now we're going to be back in the 60s anyway, which is good. So today I plan on reviewing season two of Reacher. Um, Now, Reacher is from the Reacher novels that a big fan of, to say the least. Up until about maybe, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I actually had come to a point where I um, read just about every single one of his books, but I've been a little negligent. So I'm probably a few novels behind, but just about all of the Reach novels I'm familiar with, and this one in particular, Bad Luck and Trouble. Yeah, I remember that was actually one of my favorites when I was reading. Uh, the problem with when you read as many novels of Reacher as I did, a lot of them kind of blur together. There's not, not a lot of real variety. There's always a pretty woman that he meets in trouble and he saves her and brings in Nagley, etc. Which is not to say that it's not enjoyable. Obviously, it is. I'm reading all the novels, um, but I mean, they do have a tendency to kind of blur together. Which is fine. I mean, if you like that kind of thing, and I do. What I like about it the most is doesn't gloss over things that Reacher is a former um, major in the army, and he's out. And he, for those of you old enough to remember the old kung fu, they did a new kung fu, which I know just ended, which is for a modern audience, which I never bothered to look at. But the original one with David Carradine, it actually is kind of similar to that, in that he leaves the military, which I'm not going to explain how that happens. You got to read the novels or watch the show. But he ends up just basically retiring and traveling the world, or actually it's the country. I don't remember him going out of the United States. But no, yeah, he more takes his toothbrush, which is all he has for luggage, and mostly buses. Sometimes he hitchhikes, and he just goes around for adventures, very similar to the old kung fu back in the early '70s. And it's he's an old time tough guy. I know a lot of people with the that like the modern audience probably will think he's a little bit too violent. But for someone like me and a lot of people that I know, we like old school still, and it's refreshing to see a time where men were men and weren't apologetic for it. To be honest with you, we know the Alan Richson, I guess is his name. I haven't seen him a lot around. I guess has been in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and another show I've never heard of before called Blood Drive. His co-star, his sidekick, who usually brings in for help when things get difficult, Negley, is played by Maria Sten. She's been in the Swamp Thing, and Channel Zero, I guess, is another show she's been in, which I'm not familiar with. The love interest was played by Serinda Swan, who you might know from the short show The Inhumans. Didn't last very long. I think her name was like Medusa or something. I didn't actually watch the show. I just read about it, so I could be wrong with that. But I got really excited about the show in general and about the new season. I love season one. I'm not going to review that because it came out a while ago. But the original attempt at doing Reacher a few years ago, they got Tom Cruise. And it's no offense to Tom Cruise. I mean, but Reacher's a character that his physical size matters. He just doesn't happen to be 6'5" and I don't know, 250, 275, whatever he is, of solid muscle. By chance. I mean, it plays a lot into his character. I remember one of the books I was reading where he was running in the middle of the night with a woman, and they had to scale a fence, and he was climbing up this wall. I guess he had his shirt off, for the women or whatever. And he was climbing the wall, and she was amazed at the way he looked like King Kong. So his size really did matter. So when they got Tom Cruise, and like I said, no offense to Tom Cruise, but he just looked nothing like Jack Reacher. And like I said, size, in some things, some characters, I suppose it wouldn't matter, but you got to look the part. I mean, people wouldn't hire me to do a life story of Kate Upton. I mean, I don't look like Kate Upton. So yeah, I mean, so this is way more believable. He looks the size of Jack Reacher as I've known him from novels, which is good. Another thing I like about his books, by the way, is he seems, and I'm talking about Lee Child, by the way. I read about his background. I don't see any military in his background. I wish I could meet the guy and find out. He's got to have something. I think his father might have been in the military, now thinking about it. But the way he describes things is tremendous. He can describe, Reacher, setting up a sniper shot, and he'll go into pages of detail about what's important in getting the heartbeat down. And, if it's going through a glass, you need actually 2 shots, the first one to break the glass and the second one to hit the target, stuff like I would possibly know of it, but it made it interesting, that kind of stuff. So I do actually like Lee Child's writing style too. Some people might find it a little slow with all the descriptions, but I'm actually pretty good with it. As far as the show goes, the season, it's one of my favorite books. It's about the fact that when he was a major in the military, he led a group of special investigators that were like top notch, and through a series of events, some of which they cover in the season, they get disbanded. And they break up, and I guess they leave the military. Well, it comes to his attention that some of the former members of the special investigators are missing, and some have been killed. So he brings the old group together. They kind of find out what's going on. Are they alive? Are they dead? If they're dead, how? So yeah, it was pretty interesting. I'll have to be honest, though, it was a little disappointing because it was one of my favorite books. Season 1, I told this was a little bit of a disappointment coming down from season 1. I didn't want to hear it. I will say the first 10 minutes really had me cheering. I was very excited. Unfortunately, it didn't really stay there. It kind of... I cannot lie. It was a little bit disappointing. And some of the things, with me saying that the book's kind of blended in, there are a lot of things that I'm scratching my head going, I don't recall that in the book. Doesn't mean it's not there. It just means I don't remember it. And some of the stuff that I'll cover really quickly, I would be hard pressed to think it was in the book. But a couple of notes before we get into that. Robert Patrick, who you probably know from Terminator, and a few other things too. He's been in a lot of things. He was in Walking Dead for an episode. He's a guy that's been around for a while. He's in it. He looks terrible, by the way. I checked out, and I got really nervous because he's only like 5 years older than I am. But anyway, he does not look great. But he puts in a good performance, like he always does. Which is good. Trying to think. There were some there was another guy too, and I'm honestly forgetting his name, but he was from The Wire. He played Herc in The Wire, and I am sorry, but I do not remember the guy's name presently. I think it's like Damasio. I'm ashamed, but anyway, for those of you, and he was in a few things too. But he was in that movie Replica recently. That's right. That's not a bad movie, by the way. Was it on Netflix? It might have been on Netflix. I didn't pay for it, but there's a movie called Replica that he was in that actually was pretty good, and it was the return of Alicia Silverstone too in that movie. So yeah, I mean, there's a hidden nugget if you want to kill a couple hours. Anyway, back to this. Um, so I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, there was one scene that I'm really tired of seeing this kind of stuff in movies and TV shows. I kind of work in technology, and I have for close to 30 years now. Um, can we stop having people guess passwords? I remember the first time I saw that with Sandra Bullock in that really bad movie, The Net. Not bad, you know. When I was watching it, for someone who was in technology, it made a lot of errors, as did Firewall, I think was called, with Harrison Ford. Boy, I mean, don't get me going on the technology flaws there, but yeah, I mean, but guessing passwords. The fact is, this is not 1995 anymore. If somebody doesn't want you to know their password, it's not that hard. I think just your average 12-year-old probably knows to stick a few, characters, exclamation point in the middle or a star here or there, and I mean, it just makes the password so much more complicated. You wouldn't believe it. So you're probably not going to put your dog's name anymore for your password or your favorite baseball team. But so that kind of irritated me. I'm almost sure that couldn't have been in the book. Lee Child is too good with his details that he wouldn't put that in there. But yeah, at one point they get together and they had to guess a password. And another one too. For those of you who know any technology, I'll try not to bore people too much. But they located a woman through her daughter was playing like a Nintendo game, and one of the tech geeks supposedly found her IP address and located her. Yeah, that's not going to happen. The IP address, at most, if they found it, would give them a proxy server somewhere. You're not going to locate the daughter, but maybe I'm getting too much in detail. But these are the things that I'm just shaking my head going, yeah, they didn't really need to add that. Pretty sure that wasn't in the book either. So anyway, I did find out that the villains seemed to be a little bit canned. The main characters were outstanding, and I liked that about them. Alan Ritchson is a great reacher. Begley is great. Begley is a tough, strong woman, but she has issues, and they brought that across very well. She might be a little bit more standoffish in the novels, but she has got a thing like she doesn't want people to touch her. I'm not sure they've explained that to her, but she's not touchy feely. If you go touching her without her, knowing, she'll probably belt you. She smiled a little bit too much, but I'm getting too granular here. She does a good job at Begley. As far as Serinda Swan, she played Dixon. Dixon wasn't really in a lot of novels. She was absolutely good. So really, I think the main characters all the way around, I had no problem with. The problem I had was with a lot of the character development and scripting. I found that the major players showed up and they performed, but a lot of the scenes had a lot of the let's go get him, all that kind of stuff. Too much running around like the Keystone Cops. I remember the book was much more intelligent. There was much more reasoning. A lot of the scenes, they were kind of convoluted and didn't really make sense. And it didn't really help me too much that I read the book. Maybe it was because I read the book so many years ago, although I don't really think 7 years ago was that long. Or maybe it's just because it wasn't in the book. I really don't know, and it's not important enough for me to go back. Maybe I'll browse through it to see. But anyway, that's what I think that was bothering me the most. And I thought the characters were outstanding. I think that the scripting and the bad guys, the villains, were weak and predictable. There was one point where they were looking for. I'm not going to blow too much here. Don't want to give away too many spoilers, but they were looking for this woman who was a key to something. They wanted to find out, and she got away. And then they decided to get her daughter. Well, apart from the fact that it's evil and mean, and you don't want them to hurt a young girl, I think she was like maybe 12 or something. It served no practical purpose for them to go after the daughter. And I know that couldn't be in the book. And I'm sitting there going, well, wait a minute. I mean, the woman had information. So you were trying to get her, but she escaped. And now you're turning around and going after the daughter. The daughter's not going to be able to tell you anything. So that was, it was a plot point, I guess, to make the bad guys bad and, to have the girl saved and all that. But, it kind of helps to make sense to the storyline. But anyway, that's pretty much it. I will give it overall. I will say it's still with my issues that I had with the storyline. I wish it stuck more to the book. I thought the characters are great. I'm certainly looking forward to season 3. Season 1 was great. I would give season 1 maybe a 9. I would give season 2 an 8, maybe. It could be probably. I'm really, really fond of the Reacher character. But I will say one more thing before I go, though, is this whole thing about a modern audience. What I liked about this, and it kind of stuck out to me, is that lo and behold, they had an old time, He-Man running around, breaking legs and saving the damsel and all that kind of stuff. But it was highly diversified. It hit all the notes. I mean, if you look back on his team that he formed in the Army, they were highly diversified. And I really don't remember if that was part of the book or not. It didn't really matter, because it doesn't really matter sometimes. When you don't make a point out of it, it doesn't really matter. Negley is a lesbian. She was a very serious. As a matter of fact, she's his right hand. I mean, he relies on Negley all the way through his novels. So you have that. You have strong women. Dixon, whose love interest was one of the members of his squad too, and she was in a lot of fights during the show, and she handled herself very, very well, and she could shoot the lights out of anything. I mean, again, what I'm trying to say is, Reacher looked great, Begley looked great, everyone looked great. Where I think nowadays they have to make men, especially white men, white straight men, look either incompetent, stupid, or both, or evil, and evil, of course, or they don't feel happy. You can do a cast like this with strong, noble, intelligent, intellectual people with honor, and not have anyone suffer as a result. They can all be people you admire, and I think that they do that very well here. I didn't feel like anybody, regardless of race, sex, or in any way, shape, or form, was compromised. I think they all put on a good show, so it can be done. For what it's worth, I wanted to throw that out there. But anyway, so yeah, we'll give it an 8, and I'm hoping the season 3 brings it back to more like the 9 territory. But certainly is worth your while, and the books certainly are worth your while. So with that, I will say, if you like this, please like, subscribe, share. Want to leave me a message, go right ahead. And hey, thank you for your time. I hope it was good for you too. This is the Gray Man saying good night.